All right, number 16. This is a rate rate times time equals distance formula. So we know distance equals rate times time. And on this one, it says Sally flew to a meeting in a plane at a distance of 2,000 kilometers away. After traveling the same amount of time on the return flight, the pilot mentioned that they still had 500 kilometers to go. The wind speed was a constant rate of 50 kilometers per hour both flights. How fast was the plane flying? Assume the plane's speed was the same both directions. Okay. So we know that a distance equals rate times time. And in this situation here, we've got a plane and it's going to fly to its destination. And we know this entire distance was 2,000 kilometers. Okay. And we know, what else do we know? It says after traveling the same amount of time on the return flight, they still had 50 kilometers to go, and they give us a wind speed of 50 kilometers during both flights. So when you headed one direction, you're flying with the wind. So if we have our R as our speed, actually let's do speed since we're looking for speed. Let's say the speed going there, we were going with a 50 mile per hour wind, so that's our speed plus 50, but on the return flight back, you had your speed of the plane minus 50 kilometers per hour, because you're going to go slower on the way back. Okay. So now we are told that the time is the same, because the flight, we said over the same period of time, they still had 50 kilometers to go. So let's solve this for time. So time is going to equal distance divided by the rate. So we're going to set up a proportion here where we have distance over rate. So on the way there, we know the distance was 2,000 kilometers, and the rate or the speed was s plus 50. Now on the way back, we know that over that same time period, they still had 50 kilometers to go, so the total distance there was only 1,500 kilometers, and the speed was s minus 50. So now we can go ahead and cross multiply here. So we're going to get 2,000 times s minus 50 equals 1,500 times s plus 50. Okay. If we can go ahead and divide both sides of this by 100, if we divided this side by 100, we'd lose 2 zeros. This side by 100, we'd lose 2 zeros. A little easier to distribute here. And we do know there's a common factor on both sides, so we could actually reduce the amount that we have to distribute by. We could take out a 5, which makes this a 4, and this a 3. So we actually distributing a 4 here and a 3 there. A little easier. So this is 4s minus 200 equals 3s plus 150. Now if you want, you can distribute the 2,000 and the 1,500. I'm just trying to make the math a little easier to do. So now bring the s to one side, we get s equals, bring the 200 to the other side, and we get 350, which should be the speed, because that's what s was. And we wanted to know what was the speed, how fast were they flying. So they were flying at 350 kilometers per hour. Okay? And that's your answer to number 16.